This is Higher Ed Matters, our podcast where we discuss all facets of the higher education industry, including its influencers. We had the amazing opportunity to sit down with Ivy Hartman and Earl Macam, two post-high school counselors in the St. Louis area who work with very different populations, to share with us the college-going trends through their eyes and how colleges and universities can be more effective at tapping into their knowledge and their shortlists.
All right, great. So Ivy and Earl, it's great to have you on the episode today. If you could, I would love to have you introduce yourselves formally, and then maybe just give us kind of what it's a day in the life like. Were you both at your respective schools?
So Ivy Hartman, I am a post-high school counselor at Rockwood Summit High School. And a day in the life for me working at a mid-sized 1,300 or so public school is I'm meeting with students. It depends on the time of year, right? So usually in fall, meeting a lot with seniors on their application process, right? And in the spring, working with juniors and mostly on their college search process. And then picking up those seniors who are just now kind of finally going, oh my gosh, this is what I need to be thinking about what I'm doing after high school. And so I'm seeking out seniors who haven't sent their transcript anywhere or haven't applied anywhere or haven't met with me yet, so that I can try to meet with 100% of the 320 plus seniors that I work with. So that's kind of a day for me. So it could be boom, 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 short meetings, and then it could be longer meetings. And then in the middle of my day, I tend to do, I do have some psychoeducational groups. I have a first generation college bound group that I do, and then some other things just in terms of that post-high school planning that we're doing.
For sure.
So Earl Macam, I'm a college counselor at MICDS, and finishing in my 10th year there. And much like what Ivy said, with seniors and juniors right now, so the fall is geared towards the senior class. Getting them going, trying to finalize lists, getting their applications kind of ready to go, teaching them how to use the common application,
Sure.
and other applications. And then at about the Thanksgiving time is when we open the doors to the junior class. And that's kind of when the volume gets loud for them in terms of the college search process. In my caseload, we have about 160-ish students total. Our upper school is 650 total, and there's 4 of us who have a portion of every single graduating class. So as we say, we grow with them. So between now and the end of the school year, be putting the seniors to bed, as I say. And then the juniors will come in for their full family meeting where we talk about the nuts and the bolts. Throughout the rest of this academic year, it's just getting to know our 9th graders.
Good. Excellent. I love that you're starting that so early with the 9th graders. And
what I mean, and it's it is a blessing to do that. Not every place gets the opportunity to do that. But, as we say, the more we know about a student, the better we can help them grow. And the story that they tell to colleges and universities is also part of our advocacy
Sure.
in that.
So glad. I'm going to jump in real quick. I'm so glad that you said that, because when we talk about growing with them or something, we always talk about in higher ed, fit, right?
Right.
And so when you do know a family or a student, it does help with that fit a lot more, and then nurturing that a lot. And so I know also when you're writing those letters of recommendation, they almost write themselves when you've got those great relationships with those students. And so that's wonderful that you get to do that.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a benefit. Again, not every place has the opportunity to do that, and I realize that. And not every student is as forthcoming. So you have students who kind of leave you in the dark, and as I say to the students, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
But the more I do know, the better off for them in the process.
Good. So thinking about the most recent classes that you've advised into college, how is that different from the pre-pandemic classes? I'm sure there's a little bit of difference there, right?
I think that now I'm seeing students applying to lots more colleges. The list is longer. for lots of different reasons, whether it's competition, whether it's selectivity.
Common App came out with their findings from the cycle from 2019-20 to the 2022-23 cycle, jumping forward, 24% increase in volume just with students. And so it's not just our offices that are seeing it. It's everybody. And the other thing that's interesting where I'm at, my demographic, is I'm working with affordability. So I think there's always a lens of that. That's fine. But also it's interesting, and I'm not sure if it's more now because I'm also a parent and kind of lived this experience, but I'm seeing students really cognizant of the location in terms of distance from home.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And so, it's oddly like thinking, I want to be able to get home, right? How easily can I get back to St. Louis? Is a 7-hour drive okay for me? And rarely am I hearing, but I think it's also my demographic that's still different than Earl's. Is rarely am I hearing, yep, East Coast, West Coast. I'm getting on a plane and going somewhere.
Right. I think one of the things I'm seeing is an increase in large public state schools over small private, maybe liberal arts colleges. I think that affordability, even with the students that I work with, affordability still is part of the equation. Now, for some students, probably not as much of an issue, but there are students who are very conscious about affordability.
Sure. I'm so glad you said that. So I'm going to go back to the Common App report again, because again, it's not just in our office, that's state over private, almost a 40% increase in state over just a 13% increase in apps in those private members in the Common App. So it is true and happening nationwide. And then the other thing, this is the elephant in the room. We got to call it like it is. Standardized testing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the other thing that we're seeing. So these students, like, I don't know if you saw it, Earl, but all of a sudden it's like, wait, these highly selective schools are going to go test optional. So now our kids I think those applications increased, right? Because they thought they had a better shot.
Do you feel that the students that went through, a portion of their high school or a portion of their education during the global pandemic came out with more kind of pragmatic, practical views of college than before because of all of the different variables that they had to deal with in the pandemic? Or is it just, in terms of that affordability or closeness to home, do you think that was informed by their experience?
For me, I'm seeing it slightly, right? In terms of pragmatism or practicality, I see it a little bit all the time anyway, because I work with families who are some blue collar, some white collar. It's hard for me to gauge what percentage of my families are first generation, but I typically have about 13 students I work with in each grade level that are first gen. Of course, there's many more of them. So when I think about it, and because of the Missouri A+ program, where a student can do certain things and then get 2 years of a 2-year school, a community college paid for, I think my families and my students are already approaching it like they know that's an option, right? And is that the option I'm going to choose? And they kind of already keep that as a backup plan. So and as a parent who lives in Missouri and has college going students, that's also something that I'm looking at. But in terms of, it's interesting, I am seeing a little more, maybe slightly, since the pandemic among my students. But I'm still getting that. It's interesting because I'm still getting that college is the thing I have to do, and I'm going to go and I'm going to spend $72,000 a year on this one school that's my dream school, rather than like being a little more practical and being like, all right, let's think about that. And, and my colleagues at Eureka High School, he's in that similar situation where how much is it our responsibility to help educate these students on the practicality of borrowing that amount of money, even though they apply early decisions somewhere and they get in and that's where they're going to go. But is it responsible? And as a counselor, we try not to put our values on our clients, but it's one of those topics that we feel like it's important and we care about our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking from the standpoint of when practicality, I don't know if I see it as much with the students that I work with. But when I really think about some of the kids who look at the X's and the O's, the dollar signs, there is a little bit more practicality in their mindset and the family's mindset as well.
These students, they go in thinking I have to pick the perfect place.
Right.
And I have to do it for the foreseeable future, for a 4-year bachelor's or a 6-year direct admit program or something.
Right.
And that's something that I'm sure you work with. I mean, it's not what the colleges want to hear, and you worked on the other side of the desk, Earl.
Right.
It's okay, so what? You can go somewhere and it's okay to change your mind.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we talk about that with some families that I work with, about the ability to change minds along the way. I mean, these are 17, 18-year-old students, right? So who knows? They roll out of bed and they could be thinking something completely different, right? I heard a program director and just like Ivy, we're in the throes of this as parents. And I was with my son at one of the schools that he was looking at, and the program director basically said, our philosophy is, and you should own this philosophy, he was saying, is that grow where you're planted. Like, wherever you're planted is where you're supposed to be. So now grow from there. And that has stuck with me. Like, that's kind of that fit factor, right?
Exactly.
And things happen for a reason in this process. And I think the more families and the more students can understand that things happen for a reason, and then wherever it is that reason is, or wherever it is that student is planted, grow from there. It makes total sense.
And I know why you're bringing that up, though, because we see the heartbreak that happens, right? When they're not admitted to the place they thought they really wanted to go. And that's the conversation we have.
Right.
Happened for a reason. Where you're supposed to be.
And I know that's going to be difficult because I think students are looking for that perfect college that's going to check all the boxes off on their list.
Right.
And to be honest, the perfect college may only check 3 of those boxes off on their list.
So what concessions do you make?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like, so again, one of the things I do with my juniors in this process is this top 10 list. And they go through it, and then they come back and they order up what priorities are number 1 all the way to 10, right? And as I tell them, I'm like, okay, so this is fluid, right? You roll out of bed tomorrow and your number 5 factor might now be your number 10, or number 1 drops down to number 4, whatever it might be. So it's kind of like, so when you get to the point of looking at all of your decisions that are on the table, which box is most important and which box is checked? Maybe it's not checked, but can you live with it not being checked?
Right.
And I try to get the students to have some practicality in there, and the whole message of making sure that they understand that they can go anywhere, and it's what they make of it that makes a whole difference,
Absolutely.
So technology and apps, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so what are they using? What are they seeing? All right.
Yes.
So from my professional lens, and students aren't reading their email, okay? And they're inundated, and it's too much. And then they want to know, how do I get off all these emails and these colleges that are bombarding me after they take a standardized test? That's what's happening, right? Okay. And then the actual mail coming in the mail. So I'll tell you from 2 lenses. One from my students' lens is recycling bin, or the other part of it is, no, we have a place we put all that mail. Okay. From a parent perspective, my kids in my house don't read it. I go through it because I'm curious and I want to see what's being sent. And I kind of look and go, oh, and then I'll put aside things that I think my kid would like or respond to, and places that I know, because we've been doing this for so many years, we might be able to afford. Like, we could maybe look at that, because that, for us, that's one of our top 3 things, my spouse and I, is the affordability factor and return on investment and stuff. So, and so there's that. Now, what my students are saying is, okay, I saw on TikTok, and I saw, so Instagram maybe, and then, but it's the TikTok thing right now. And then somebody brought up to me more recently, Zeme, and really liking that platform, which Earl and I know when that launched decade ago. it was only on the, you could do a video essay for admissions, and it was kind of like hit or miss. And now it's just a full on, how do you find a roommate and everything. The kids are using it.
Yeah, Instagram. They don't use Facebook. I can tell you that.
Right.
Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Those are even in my own household, those are the things that students are gravitating to in terms of the media that's out there, the technology that's out there for them.
So you brought this up, being parents of college-going students. So what is that like, and what are you seeing? Are there things that they're doing that you're like, no, I've seen students do this or make this mistake in the past, or how does that impact your role at your school?
Lessons as a parent, now walking the walk, not just talking the talk. So things that went well when a parent lets their student own their own academic success, right? I'm not responsible for your grades. Those are your grades. So that translates when they go and they matriculate somewhere else and they're navigating that, and they're trying to figure out, oh, I didn't get the C in the Calc 2 class I needed in order to still be an engineer. Great. What are you going to do? How are you going to navigate that? Who are you going to talk to? Those kinds of things. Or this isn't really the place I need to be. I've navigated transferring with a student, or now the lens of talking to my junior in high school. Okay, what can I get out of you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What kind of inventories can I give you so that we can try to identify some of these potential majors and things like that? And so when they give you a little something, I go, okay, great. We went out of town over a President's Weekend to go visit a college because it was the one place he said he was interested in. And I was like, okay, great. Now, from the parent lens, what it does for me is there's that social emotional thing, not just the practicality of it, right?
Sure.
So when you go through that first year with your kid leaving, okay, now I'm looking at it from all that parent lens, even though we've been doing this, so we know what steps are happening, right? So I'll back up. Two things. First of all, my kid should also probably have all the scholarships because I know how that works, and that is simply what's happening.
That's a myth.
No, right? It's still right. Okay, but then the other thing I learned real quick was when you send a kid off to college, it's interesting because you worry about them and you're thinking about them and they're just not in your home anymore, and then they call you up and they tell you that all the stuff, right? And you're not supposed to fix it. And then they hang up with you, and you know what? They feel better. And now you're carrying that junk around with you, and you can't do a darn thing about it. But this is what I tell my parents and my friends and my students, and that's just the way it's going to be, And so for that, I subscribe to some newsletters. Can I share them?
Sure.
Okay. So I there's a lot of programs out there, right? So Grown and Flown has been one of those nice things that has helped me not only in my job, but also as a parent, and then sharing out good information. And then we share a lot of different things too with our family. So College Essay Guy, Ivy Wise, there's just a Princeton Review, College Board, they're just putting out a lot of good information. And so when I'm communicating with families, I'm trying to share all the stuff that I have up here from years and years and years of working in this field, but then also as a parent, my epiphanies. But it's hard because there's all these platforms, right? So I'm posting on Facebook as Ivy Hartman, the parent, and then I'm posting on Twitter as Ivy Hartman, the college post-high school counselor, and then I'm sending those emails to parents, and you're just trying to do it all these different ways and trying to share that lens as many different ways. And the message is going to hit different places, and then you never know who.
Right.
So it's so interesting, actually. I've been thinking about what you both said, is that there are even more applications being sent, a single student sending more than they did prior to the pandemic, which I felt like even back in 2018 and 2019, there was a trend that they were applying to even more than they were 5 years before that, right? It's almost like it's just continuing to be a big pool of potential options. And I also feel like Generation Z too, as just generationally speaking, prior to, when you compare them to millennials, they have even more from a very young age. Drew and I both have preteen, kids that at a very young age, they have access to so much information, on a variety of platforms, and they are incredibly comfortable communicating via technology and multitasking amongst multiple platforms at a single time and synthesizing that information. But then sometimes have a hard time with decision paralysis almost, because they have so much information and so much knowledge, more so than they did, than generations before them. And I'm like, is that, now they're submitting even more applications, potentially having so many more options to be admitted to, especially with test optional. Like, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like not being able to decide. And I don't know if you're seeing that in your students when they're, if they're getting admitted to 7, 10, potential colleges or universities, then what? Does it come down to affordability? Like, how do you help with that? Even just that final decision.
You're right. So I think that checklist Earl talked about shifts. Once you have those admissions decisions, the priorities list, right? So then that's when you kind of go, okay. And it is neat to kind of talk through that with students and parents and go pros and cons and where can you see yourself? And sometimes it is tough, but sometimes it is real clear cut. Sometimes the colleges make the decision for you and you may not. And I think we're just seeing more because they, like Earl said, there's a variety of things. So they just want to kind of see. So I think more of that analysis paralysis comes in of where I'm going to apply. And then determining, am I going to apply early decision somewhere or not? And which place will that be? And that puts us in a difficult position too, because it's tough because we're advising them on that one place that could be the one, but always the backup plan, right? I'm the queen of the backup plan. Doesn't matter what it is. What's the backup plan, right? Always, always, always. So I'm glad you brought that up. But I think I go back to what Earl says. Everything works out the way.
Yeah. We talk about the parallel plan, right?
Ooh, parallel plan.
Yeah. It's okay. So this is my school that I want to apply early decision to. And if it works out, great. You get in December, pack your bags, you're done.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't, then what's the plan next to this plan? Right? Because as college counselors or post high school counselors, we have to sleep at night.
Right.
And that parallel plan allows us to sleep at night.
Sure.
That's our job. That's what we have to do. And as deeply invested as we are to each of our students, we have to make sure that at the end of the day, there's that one green check mark.
Right.
And as long as they can live with that one green check mark, then we can sleep at night.
Sure.
Right. And I emphasize that to my families when I meet with them in the junior year. I tell them, I said, I have to go to the very end and I have to be able to say, and you have to be able to answer that tough question. Can you live with it? Not are you going to be happy with it,
right?
But can you live with it? If the answer is yes, we're balanced. We're good, right? But if the answer is no, you have to keep shopping.
Right. That's a great way to put that. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about apps and technology and communication from colleges and universities. And from your perspective, how could colleges be communicating better with your students? Because you said they don't read email. Maybe they'll text a link. Maybe they're on the TikTok. I don't know. But what are some ways colleges can communicate better with your prospective students?
Wait, if we had that answer, we'd be real rich.
We wouldn't have the jobs we need.
Right.
I don't have the silver bullet golden answer.
Sure.
I do think that students are married to this device. So whatever you can feed to them as a firm, that they instantly can have on this particular device, the better off they're going to see it. And again, whatever platform that might be, text message, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever they can see while they're scrolling through the other things that they're looking at, I think is probably the most effective thing for that generation.
Sure.
We say email, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's the thing these days. I know so many students who just don't read it. We're just not there.
Sure.
Here's the other thing. Sometimes with my population is they're thinking about name recognition. I'm sure you get this rather than, those look like my people. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for. That's affirming to me as a human, not like, oh, what is that? Oh, that school's that,
Sure.
let me give you an example. A friend of mine has 2 sons, and they are in late elementary school and late middle school, so like 8th and 5th grade or something. And the 2 siblings are fighting with each other. And a put down, listen to this, is he says, well, one brother says, well, I'm going to go to Penn State, and you're such a dummy. You're going to go to the community college or whatever. And the mom hears this, and she works with me, and she says, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right.
First of all, but none of you are going to Penn State because we can't afford it.
Right.
And then also the community college is not for dummies.
Right.
Like this is a legitimate thing to go. So there's starting at a young age, even with yours, they're viewing things and they see things, and there's that name. So who are they seeing? What are they seeing? But are they looking at it for the right reasons?
Right.
Now, we're on the other side of the desk. So what do we want? What helps us with the reps, right? How can they? I'm sure this is your follow-up question. Like, what do you?
You read my mind.
Right.
Yes.
What? Sorry to take the words out of your
No,
mouth,
you're
but
good.
like, what do we need to see? So, this is the impossible of impossible. The impossible dream, right? Is that you have continuity in your office, right? So it's
Yes,
that relationship
absolutely.
building. So if I know who I can go to in a certain office, but even if you're in admissions and you move to another admissions office and I have a relationship with you and you're still the person that I get to have a relationship with, that's that sales side of things, right? It's that relationship building. Like, you're not selling me anything, but that's how we get to help students together.
Right.
And so that is the key. So things that help me, and then things of value that I get the most out of in order to help families with this fit process. And I think of 2 things, easy ones. One is get me on your campus and show me, tell me, and I'll keep that locked in for a long time.
No
Then I can, right?
No question.
So fly-ins or bus trips or whatever you can do. And keep in mind, a public school like me, we don't have a budget.
Right.
So if you're going to pay for it, boom, and partner with another school so that I can see multiple things if I'm going to be out of the office. The second way to get me is if you can have something regionally. I'll give you an example. A luncheon here in the St. Louis area with a bunch of college counselors, and you bring us in. Don't give me a PowerPoint. That's fine. But just bullet point the things that you want to highlight this year and bring somebody from the engineering department, a professor and a student, and let me hear firsthand about that. Boom. And then next year, and do the same thing again. Let's highlight something else. So I'm learning something new about your institution every year or whatever, and that's stuff that's going to stay with me, and I'm going to be able to help families.
Yeah, and to add to that, I fly-ins, so one step further than that, because I've had the opportunity to serve on a counselor advisory boards for certain colleges and universities. For those colleges and universities who can invest that time of that amount of money and time into the counselors that are on the ground, as Ivy said, you take those stories and you deliver them. You deliver them to your clients or your students. That's huge. I am a huge advocate of colleges and universities who, if they're looking for one piece or a few pieces to invest money in, that in my mind that would be it. And counselor advisory boards can differ in terms of length and tenure, but
Sure.
2-3 years sometimes, you get to see the evolution of a university and a college over a period of time. And I think that for them to have 15, 20 counselors that are knowing that university and the growth of a university front to back is tremendous, to be able to say, okay, now go back to your hometown and deliver this message that's out there.
That's decades. We're impacting way more students. Your money, I think, is better spent doing that than a big glossy brochure that's
Right.
going to in somebody's recycling bin. And so the other thing, then think about this. So I know I've been listening to Higher Ed Matters a lot, or periodically, and I'm hearing like, okay, you want to know. So I know it's hard to find people that you can keep, right? Because there's high turnover in offices. I get it, but then also investing in that side of the people who are in charge of your student ambassadors or make sure they're members of CIVSA or whatever, and getting to do that professional development. Because when we go on some of these things, we know good ones and we know not so good ones. And so you need to look at a good way to,
yes.
that's the other thing.
Absolutely.
And when we go on campus visits, okay, so when we go on campus visits as counselors, fine, but we also go as parents, right? And so we're always, and we're like,
exactly where I'm going. Yep.
and so I'll never forget. I toured this campus 3 times, twice as a counselor, once with my student. And the one time I went with my student, my kid loved the tour, but I will be honest with you, I was like, oh my gosh, they cannot send, that guy should not be a tour guide. That kid said, bruh to me, and I was like, oh my gosh. But my student loved it. But I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah. And so going back to the whole personal thing about this, right? As Ivy is alluding to, because we have our own kids in this process. The good ones, I make sure that I tell the admissions office that's a keeper.
Nice.
Because I think they need to know,
a great point.
if that student ambassador, what about that student ambassador is selling that institution? Have your students ambassadors emulate that person, because that person has just sold that university to me and my family for this reason, whatever it might be. But you also see the ones that are not so good, right? And they're like, oh my goodness. And having done this for so many years, it's like that student should not be doing this.
Right.
No way.
Right, bruh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, you bring up such a good point too, as well as the counselor advisory committee. I think that's so key. And I don't know why more institutions don't do this, but really the value that adds for just the tacit knowledge that you have from other institutions, that then you can inform the campus to say, oh, by the way, X school is doing this or Y school is doing this. Have you thought about that?
Right.
And that speaks volumes. I would definitely lean in on a counselor advisory committee if I were an institution looking for some advice and some help. So.
Right. Yeah. And, one of the recent advisory committees that I served on, at the end of our tenure of serving on the committee, on the board, we had the opportunity to actually meet one-on-one the committee with the president of the university. And he was able to ask us, just as you said, what are you seeing that's out there? I want as much information, right? And unscripted, here we go. All 20 of us, just here we go. This is what we're seeing. And now they're able to implement some of those things. Obviously, they're going to filter some things out that doesn't make sense for their institution, but they're able to now understand, okay, you guys are on the ground. You guys are out there with your 17 and 18-year-old students and families. What are you saying? We're up here in the top office of this college and university. We want to get your feedback. It's so helpful. Like I said, I am a big proponent. I could do more sessions on just counselor advisory boards because I believe in them so much.
It's awesome. So we recently had the opportunity to be in on a focus group with college-age students. And a lot of them said during their college process, but also in high school, that they really leaned in on social media in terms of second-guessing even going to college because they could be possibly an influencer on social media, or at least having that ability to be an entrepreneurial. So what is that? Does that ring a bell to any of your students? Does that seem like something that you've had conversations with, or is that?
I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing, what I'm hearing is the parallel plan, but we call it side hustle, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. I'm hearing more students talk about the side hustle and they're embracing it, right? Whereas, okay, not just a career, but I know that I'm going to have another thing, which is neat because I wasn't really thinking about that when I was their age. And even in the 20 years I've been doing this, that's kind of a newer thing in the last 4 years or so. And where they're starting this in high school, they get it. Like the shoe, like reselling shoes and things like I'm seeing social media. Yeah.
Bringing jewelry.
Interesting.
But they still have this plan and this plan A that they're going with, So not seeing it as
Okay.
much. But what I am seeing at a public school is I'm seeing that more and more students say, I'm not. Why? Why would I invest $100,000 in a college education? Why? I don't want to be in debt. I don't want to, and so, which is wonderful because we have a skilled trades gap.
Right.
And it's going to just keep getting bigger. And so it's great that they're acknowledging that, and that opens the door for us to be like, great, let's explore some of these other options that you have. And as a matter of fact, here in the St. Louis area, last spring and this spring is the first time we've done this. It's a career and apprenticeship fair, and it's a partnership so that these kids can get hands-on. Again, you show me, you tell me. Kids aren't any different than us when I say fly me in and tell me. Show me and tell me. I don't really know what it means to swing a hammer. I don't really know what horticulture means. I didn't even think about this. Somebody needs to have a job fixing whatever in this building. You know what I mean? Things that you hadn't thought about. And then, what does it piggyback on that? There's jobs, like you said, that we never would have thought existed with being an influencer and things like that. And of course, the kids see the influencers, but I think they take that with a grain of salt.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope they do, at least. Yes.
Yeah.
So another little secret that I like to tell people is, being a part of the National Career Development Association and the Missouri Career Development Association in my more recent years has opened my eyes. And this is the little thing that I'll tell my students, all my high school students. I say, here you go to the career office, not in the junior year of college on that college campus when you think you need an internship. Right. Get on there second semester, freshman year. First semester, you got to figure things out, right?
Yeah.
Second semester, good. They because they're there like, I'm here for you, right? They're going to help you understand yourself. They're going to know the professors. They're going to know the majors a little better. I don't know them all. You know what I mean? So that's a great office to tap into early on. Don't wait until later on.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Love that. Well, I think a great takeaway, one is just be mindful of the message and the voice and the tone for sure. And then two, that there is no silver bullet, but maybe it's a multi-channel approach that they need to reach these students and to make that impact. And so there's a great agency that can help you with that multi-channel approach, by the way. So Ivy and Earl, you guys are amazing. It's so great to see you and have you. What a great conversation this has been. I wish you success and luck in this year as you send students off to college. So,
yeah. Thanks. Thank you.